What's up, everybody? Cash Sirois with the Collectible Network. This is Unpacking. This is our interview show, and we are sitting here with a badass in the industry, Brad Jarryd, the comeback card investor. You've made quite a mark for yourself in the content creation space and in the financial space for sports card collecting over the last couple months and years and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you coming on with us, man.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. It was great meeting you 5 minutes ago. And then 5 minutes later, here I am in front of cameras and speaking with you. And I love what you're putting together.
That's very cool, man. I appreciate it. Your background is fascinating to me for several reasons. And you saw me perk up when we were talking about the investment dollar and the way that the market is right now. Nobody can lose. It's the stock market's been on a run forever. The sports card market's been on a run forever. But what I'm interested in speaking about is the fact that it will go down, but that doesn't mean that everything needs to implode. It's thinking intelligently, correct, about how you're spending your money now, how you might be spending your money in the future. Give me your philosophy on where we're at and where we're headed.
Sure. So my background is, I grew up as an only child of immigrant parents who were always good at saving, never about investing or taking many risks. But then I had some great mentors early on who showed me, hey, you can make $50K a year, but eventually be a multimillionaire if you did the right things, if you invest, if you save appropriately, if you took calculated risk. And so I got very fascinated at an early age about how to grow wealth, because I realized I didn't have to become a doctor or a lawyer. I could be a normal employee, a normal person, and be able to do this. So over the years, I learned about real estate investing. I learned about how we can compound our money over time using interest, the same way that credit card companies and the banks do it against us, right? So after years and years of pursuing a career as a male model, which I thought would be the coolest, best thing in the world. And there are perks.
And he's dreamy, good looking, and we got to deal with that.
Well,
The
here's
smarts, the looks.
Here's the thing.
Blech.
It sounds great. It's the most rejection you'll ever face in your life. And for about 8 or 9 years, I was trying to create full-time income on something that was fun, but I was never able to reach that status. So I had to become extremely aware of where my money was going, incredibly intentional as well. And so I got better and better at saying, I have $10, what is the best use of this $10? I can save it, I can invest it, I can spend it here. And so I started helping my friends and family members become better and better with their money, because they might be making great income, but it would leave them quicker than the next check would arrive.
Right.
So I said, hold on. Let's look at what this would do if you invested it. Let's look at opportunity cost. Not a lot of people talk about opportunity cost, which is everything else you could be doing with your money,
Right.
Versus the one decision you're trying to make.
Yeah.
And so after many years, I finally discovered that a financial coach was an actual career. I thought you had to be a financial advisor, sell investments. I said, I don't want to be in a shirt and tie in an office selling investments. I want to help people become better with their actual finances. Actually, what habits, what mindset principles, what are the things that aren't taught in high school that should be taught in high school? So I became a Dave Ramsey certified finance coach. I'm not sure if you were familiar with the name Dave Ramsey.
Yes.
He's arguably the #1 financial coach in the country, and he's known for being very matter of fact, very practical, and anti-debt, and just let's use money to grow.
So it's interesting that you have pivoted to sports cards, and my first question is that because it's just gotten so big and the money's so big there? But the interesting thing about it is that you are talking from a very analytical standpoint about something that people are very passionate about.
Yes.
And passions get in the way of strategy sometimes.
Yes.
So how do you manage that? You yourself sound like you got it handled pretty good. But if you're talking to other people who get wrapped up in the laundry of their favorite team or their favorite player that might not align with a good financial strategy, how do you handle that?
I mean, for me, it's being real with yourself and being honest with your emotions, right? I know I love any Tom Brady and any Rob Gronkowski Buccaneer card because I'm from Tampa, grew up there. Any card like that is going to stir the pot for me, because I'm going to look there and be like, ooh, I want to buy it. It doesn't matter what. But I can be aware that this is a PC purchase. Maybe it can be a good investment down the road, but emotionally I'm drawn to it. So I got to be aware, okay, this is a card that I want for myself. Maybe it goes up, but I don't want to justify something falsely just because I know that I want it for myself. And then the other flip side of the coin is, okay, this is my investment. I'm not really tied to this card. I'm not really tied to this player, but I see the upside in it. And if I were able to sell at a profit, now I'm going to be able to afford more cards that I do like for myself. But it really comes down to being honest with your emotions, knowing what you love for yourself, and knowing what you're good just passing on as an investment and selling whenever the time's right.
This is exactly why I perked up when you said this, because now we're off into another thing that I find really, really interesting. In general, I'm, like most collectors, I think, where rookie cards and, those insert numbered rookie cards are what you're looking for, whatever. And somebody in their 20th season is not something that I'm all that into. But it's Tom Brady and they're Buck cards, and you got to think of the heat that comes from being a Bucks fan and never having anybody like this, and how that stirs emotions and then stirs the market. And it's like, on one thing I can understand, like Tom Brady becomes a Buccaneer, suddenly the Buccaneers Tom Brady jersey becomes the number one selling jersey. That's a jersey thing.
Right.
But the collectible want for something that has been around. Tom Brady cards have been around for 2 decades, but now there's something new, a new color scheme, a new whatever, and it hasn't registered to me that might rekindle somebody who's even great, but it's their 15th, 18th, 20th year. How valuable is that card going to be?
Right. And then it comes down to, diehard Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans, the idea of seeing Tom Brady in a Buccaneers jersey was mind-boggling. It's still surreal because you think of Tampa, it's not a destination city. It's not Miami. It's not New York, LA. It's not these giant markets. And all of a sudden you have Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski, 2 guys that, as a normal football fan, if you don't hate the Patriots because you're not in that division, or you don't hate them for whatever reason, you admire what they've done. You admire the connection they have. And you're like, man, if only, right? We're stuck with Jameis Winston, who ironically yesterday threw 5 touchdowns. He lit it up,
dude. He got LASIK. Everything's okay.
Well, I don't know why he wouldn't get LASIK in high school, but anyway, he got LASIK.
God, I remember in college, I'm a Florida Gator.
Okay.
So I remember the Florida State, Florida games, and he's squinting to see what the play call is from the sideline, or what, and I'm just like, dude, wear Bob Greasy glasses at least, but get yourself fixed.
It's ridiculous that a quarterback of a top school and then a top NFL would not have LASIK years and years and years ago. But anyway, that's beside the point. But now it opens up the door for first-year Tom Brady Buccaneer cards, inserts, things like that. And I look at older Tom Brady cards and Patriot jerseys, and I just don't care. Yeah. I just don't care because I'm such a big Bucs fan that I said these are now the cards that I can remember what it's like in March of 2020 when he signed, when that news broke I think the first week of COVID, or first few weeks of quarantine, where everything was so negative. And all of a sudden, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, you're like, I can go through COVID. I mean, I can do quarantine for another year because I have the best news in the world.
Very cool. Everybody that's sat down in this chair at the Industry Summit over the last couple of days, dealing with the same elephant in the room in the Fanatics acquiring the licensing for MLB, NFL, and NBA. First gut reaction when, icons of the industry, especially tops, to a certain extent, are having to shift and move things aside over the next couple of years. What was your gut feeling, and how do you think this is going to change the hobby?
Sure. I mean, it's sad from a collectible standpoint because even I grew up in the 90s with Topps Chrome. Topps Finest was one of my favorite sets. And I'm really hoping that Fanatics will be able to do a partnership, will be able to do some sort of licensing agreement to do Topps-based designs, just because that is such an important part of the hobby. But it is big business. I think of it as Amazon. I think of it as these major companies, when they enter spaces that they're not, they're so much grander than that they don't have to necessarily make money on cards because they have so many other things going on that they could literally
that could be unhealthy. When you see what I'm saying? That might not be good for the industry.
Right. It could be too money driven. Yes, it could. I'm hoping that they're smart enough to say, we got to think long-term as well. We want this to be not just a money grab, but we want to have the license for 20, 30 years. So what will keep collectors interested for 20, 30 years? Well, we know if we're taking over, we got to make up for a lot of what we're replacing, which has been 70 years or whatever, and then at least 15, 20 years with Panini. The one big thing is I just see bigger opportunity that expands way beyond cards, because Panini, Topps, they are cards. Upper Deck, Fleer, all those, that is cards. Fanatics can say, all right, hold on a second. we can do player deals. We could tie this into NFTs. We can make cards at every stadium, and our vision can be 5 times bigger than what any specific card company could be, because we have way more resources and way more capabilities.
I'm fascinated because I can absolutely see both sides of it. I mean, a 20-year deal, while yeah, that's a massive amount of money and they've got a lot more arrows in their quiver, so to speak, it also can breed complacency. And those 2-3 year deals theoretically made you put out your best always, because you might lose it.
Just like an athlete, right? You signed a 10-year deal. Hey, I'm year 2 of a 10-year deal.
Yeah.
How much is guaranteed?
Yeah.
Right? So it's one of those things where in a contract year,
Yes.
you always see those players perform.
Yes.
They're never slacking. They're always coming to training camp in tip-top shape.
Yeah.
But you're right. If it's a 20-year exclusive, then it's dangerous. But if people don't buy, and knowing how much they would have had to bid, I mean, Fanatics would have had to bid a lot of money to outbid all these other companies in all the sports. So I'm hoping that they're very serious about making their money back by doing the right thing.
Yeah. What is the first thing that you remember collecting? The thing that it basically has you sitting here today. You know what I'm saying? One domino hits another. Was there one? Was it a card? Was it a toy? Was it a movie poster? Or a Beanie Baby? Whatever. What is the one thing that you remember?
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Tampa in the early to mid 90s, the Tampa Bay Rays didn't exist yet. The Tampa Bay Lightning weren't good yet. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had always sucked. The one team that was worth watching living in Tampa was the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
So Shaq cards, Penny Hardaway cards. I loved anything Shaq and Penny, anything with a Magic logo on it. And 30 years later, 20-something years later, it's still very tough to be a Magic fan. It's one of the hardest franchises to be a fan of.
Yeah, it's true.
But it was those sports cards, because it also connected me to my friends, because remember, I'm an only child of immigrant parents, so I had to connect to these peers in school somehow. And if they were into sports and sports cards, then I had to become interested as well. And good thing, I loved it, and we bonded over it, and here we are.
That's awesome, man. And then last question, it's fun to speculate. Financial speculation is part of it. Give me 2 or 3 names that in 3 years, I don't want to hear about Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady.
Okay.
I want 2-3 names in any sport that, you spend 50, 100 bucks, $150 now, that's a $3,000 card in 3 years.
Okay, well, there's only one name that came to mind. So I follow football and basketball loosely, but I love Tampa Bay Lightning and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I follow that very closely. Braden Point of the Tampa Bay Lightning, who they just won their 2nd straight Stanley Cup.
Yep.
I invested in his cards before his prices went through the roof. So it was around $15 for a raw Upper Deck Young Guns rookie card.
Wow.
Then I got it graded, got several 10s, because Young Guns is a pretty easy grade. Sold those for, I think, $2 to $3.50 a piece. But he is such a fun player to watch. He's a goal scorer. He's a handler. He's one of those guys that just pops out on the screen. So if you watch hockey, Braden Point is he is a star in the making.
And there's still room, you think?
Oh, he's so young.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's just one of those fun guys to root for and watch. And I mean, as a Bucs fan, I guess Chris Godwin, the receiver, I don't know. I know receivers are a bit tougher long term, but he had a down year last year. But man, he is a great receiver. Obviously, Tom Brady's throwing him the ball. So I don't know what his cards will go to long term, but the next couple of years, as long as he stays healthy, I think he's the one receiver that really emerges above the others.
We're in Vegas, so I can say this. I've got a bet in for a season over 1,100 yards, him receiving. I like the 17th game, and
he
and Brady are connected.
Year. That's right. And there's a lot of targets. That's the one thing with Tampa is
that's
that
true.
They got a lot of mouths to feed, but he is the receiver that's young, that is good. He's likable. He has a great story with his, I think, high school sweetheart that he married after winning the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So very good guy off the field as well. So good luck to you there.
Cool. Brad Jarryd, the comeback card investor. Thank you so much for being on the Collectible Network.
Thanks for having me. This has been great.
Awesome, man. Thanks.